The man in seat 12F hadn't said a word since boarding. He sat there, quietly adjusting the tiny hands of his daughter as she played with the airline magazine, tracing clouds with her finger against the window. No one on that flight to Washington knew his name. They didn't know that the silence wrapped around him wasn't ordinary, it was earned. And when the voice crackled through the airport speaker that day, "Sir, welcome back, Viper One," everything he had buried came rushing back. The flight attendants loved him instantly. His calm, his gentleness with the little girl who called him Daddy, in a whisper that melted hearts. He wasn't loud or tired like most single parents. His movements were precise, measured, almost rehearsed, like a man used to control. But every time the plane tilted into a bank of clouds, his eyes would flicker, muscle memory from years of scanning the sky for threats. The other passengers didn't notice, but one man did. 3 rows ahead sat Commander Jack Reynolds. Grey hair, pressed uniform, and a face carved by decades of command. He was on his way to D.C. for a defense summit, and he knew that posture, that discipline, that look. He leaned sideways just once to check the seat number behind him. 12F. His heart stumbled. Could it be? He waited until landing. The little girl was asleep, her head resting on her father's shoulder, a stuffed fox squeezed tight in her arms. The man held her with both gentleness and protectiveness, unaware of the gaze burning through the aisle. When the seatbelt light blinked off, Commander Reynolds stood and turned, voice low but certain. "Sir," he said, "welcome back, Viper One." The man froze. His hands tightened around his daughter instinctively. He hadn't heard that call sign in 7 years, not since the night the sky had burned over Syria and the comms went dead. He turned slowly, his face pale, eyes glassy with confusion and dread. "Commander," he said softly, "you've got the wrong man." But Reynolds didn't. No one could forget the eyes of the pilot who'd saved 3 squadrons that night and vanished without a trace. He hadn't wanted this life. He hadn't wanted fame or medals or the government's quiet promise to fix things. He'd wanted peace after his wife's car accident, after she died while he was still overseas. Peace had meant disappearing. He'd taken his daughter and left everything else behind. New name, new life, a single father who sold drone software from home, who attended PTA meetings, who sometimes woke in the night gasping for air. He didn't tell stories about his past. He just said, "Daddy used to fly planes," and left it there. But the past never stays buried when it's written in classified ink. That night, as they checked into their hotel, there was a knock on the door. The same commander. No uniform this time, just a man holding a thin folder. "She deserves to know who her father really is," he said gently, nodding at the sleeping child. "I'm not that man anymore," came the reply. Reynolds sighed. "You don't get to stop being a hero, son. Not when the world still needs you." The next morning, he found himself at the Pentagon. Against his will, against his fear. The folder lay open on the table. Satellite images, threats resurfacing, a name he recognized from years ago. He felt that old fire in his veins, the same that once drove him through enemy airspace at Mach 2. But this time there was a pair of brown eyes waiting at home. "Why me?" he asked. "You've got younger pilots." "Because they don't have your instincts," said Reynolds, "and because this isn't about war, it's about saving lives." He stared at the photograph of a refugee convoy pinned under drone fire. Something inside him broke. He realized peace wasn't about hiding. It was about knowing when to fight again for something greater than yourself. 2 weeks later, the world watched a storm unfold on international news, an operation no one officially confirmed. But somewhere in the sky, far from cameras and headlines, a single F-22 streaked across the horizon. Call sign, Viper One. And when the dust settled, when families were rescued from the mountains, and the news anchors spoke of a ghost pilot, A little girl in Virginia drew a picture of a jet with angel wings and gave it to her dad. "Is this you, Daddy?" she asked. He smiled, tears gathering at the corner of his eyes. "Maybe, but I'm just happy to be home." That night, as he tucked her in, he looked out the window at the stars, the same stars that once guided him through fire. He realized peace wasn't the absence of storms. It was learning to fly through them and still find your way home. And that's how the man in seat 12F, the single dad no one noticed, became the quiet hero the world needed once more. Not because of medals or missions, but because he never stopped answering the call, even when all he wanted was to be a father.